staying with us. You're watching Morning Cafe. It's a feel-good Friday, but before we get into the good hits and great music, let's talk about International MSME Day. Of course, this is a day that the United Nations has set aside to reflect on the vital role the micro, small and medium enterprises play in the economic growth and, of course, the job creation, especially among the young people. So this morning, I am joined by Mendi Njonjo, Director, KCB Foundation, to explore how the foundation, the KCB Foundation, is, of course, enabling young people to drive change through education, skills and enterprises. Karibu sana, Mendi.
Asante sana, glad to be here.
Thank you. So let's start with a brief introduction. Talk to us about the KCB Foundation.
So thank you. So the KCB Foundation is the social arm of the KCB Group. And what we do is we really believe in investing in young people. So today being International MSME Day is really relevant to the work that the KCB Foundation does. So we support young people in education, so being able to give them high school and tertiary education, as well as really importantly also equipping young people with the skills they need to either be able to have vocational training or workforce readiness, and to start an MSME, grow it, and be able to scale it eventually.
So why is the young people specifically your strategic focus at the KCB Foundation?
So because we really believe young people are an asset. There's been a lot of conversations around what space do young people play in the economy, what space do young people hold when it comes to the social space. And for us as KCB, we really know that young people are the true assets when you think of what a country really should be proud of. And for us, investing in young people, be it in education, for them to be able to get the skills they need to advance, to be able to really make sure that their communities are thriving, we really know that if you want to unlock shared prosperity, it has to be by investing in young people.
So before, of course, you came up with the idea to just create this platform for the young people, what gaps did you see as the KCB Foundation that prompted this response to have this, just a focus specifically for the young people?
Certainly. So we do know that if you want to invest in a community, one of the best ways to do this is through education. And if you look at where the biggest perhaps danger is, if you look at students being able to continue their education, it is in that transition stage. So students who are moving from primary school to high school or high school to tertiary, a lot of students fall off at this particular points. So we knew that we needed to intervene at those, can I say, fraction points, those points of danger where students were in danger of not being able to move to the next stage. So that's why we came up with our KCB Scholars Program, which really tries to make sure that we make sure that students from primary school are being able to go to high school, are being able to tertiary. And this has been an overwhelming success. So we find, like with our KCB Scholars, we have about 99% completion rate, which means that 99% of students who start high school will finish high school. And then about 84% of students who are finishing high school will go on to tertiary education. And if I shift now to young adults, one of the things we're very clear about is that we must do work in workforce development. About 1 million young people will join the workforce every year. About 800,000 of them will not get a job. So we knew we have to work in this space. And this really speaks towards making sure that they have workforce readiness, vocational training, because if we're not intervening in this space, we are really making a choice about these 800,000 people who otherwise are not going to get employed. So we knew we had to do something on that front, which is where the Tujiajiri program comes in, where we do workforce training as well as MSME development for youth-owned businesses.
And now that you talk about Tujiajiri as well, you have two flagship programs. I'm looking at Tujiajiri and the Scholars Program as well. Just talk to us more about this Tujiajiri program. How is it designed, to tackle youth unemployment?
Certainly. So Tujiajiri was very carefully designed to look at two things. One is that skills gap, which is that, as I said, there's about 1 million people who are leaving the workforce, 800,000 of them will not get employed. If you also speak to employers, they'll tell you the people who we are getting do not necessarily have the right skill set to be able to be employed. So we knew we had to intervene with some sort of workforce readiness program. And what we do in this space is that every year, on or around November, December, we start rolling out scholarships for vocational training that students can actually get in. They want to do some sort of trade, they want to do some sort of workforce readiness, and we provide them largely in conjunction with counties so that students are able to get the relevant training that they need. Beyond that, we also know that MSMEs are one of the largest employers in the country. So we also knew as to GOtv we had to work on two fronts. One, the workforce readiness, and then the second is to really build up youth-owned businesses, women-owned businesses. So we do this by partnering with training providers who we have found sometimes it's marketing that some MSMEs need. For some, it is around some technical skill, like maybe you're a beekeeper, I want to learn how to maybe have some sort of technical standard from KEBS. So we knew we really also needed to support these MSMEs with business readiness, investor readiness, so that they're able to really grow and scale their businesses and not go into that trap where many MSMEs that are started after 2 years, they tend to really fall off and disappear. So that's what we were trying to do with GOtv. We've been relatively successful. We're quite proud of what it is that we've been able to do. And like for instance, to date, we've been able to help create about 150,000 jobs, support over 40,000 SMEs. We've also trained close to maybe 30,000 young people. So this really speaks towards not just the success of GOtv, but also the scale of the need. So it's something we're very clear that we have to continue working on if we are really going to tackle this issue of youth employment.
As to GOtv, are you where you want to be? Are you successful in the implementation of this program, or is there more that you feel like you need to do in order to just give more youth opportunities with this?
So we are happy with the implementation. But it's one of those things where you look and what's the phrase? The job is so much, The harvest is a lot. The laborers are few. So we're very clear that if you want to tackle youth employment or youth unemployment at the scale it needs to be tackled at, you have to move to a space where you're now creating 1 million jobs a year. Right? So that's the scale of the problem. And I'd like to think as to GOtv, we're trying to chip away at it. So it's something that we are really appreciative of the partners that we have. For instance, the county governments. We also have partnerships with others like the MasterCard Foundation. KCB Bank in Kenya has been one of our biggest supporters in this agenda, and we know with the right partners, then and only then can we get to the scale that this problem deserves.
And that is why I asked you to start with the introduction, because now you bring in KCB Bank, and a lot of people may wonder, is this program under the KCB Bank itself?
So KCB Foundation is a separate subsidiary of the KCB Group, and KCB Bank Kenya is also a subsidiary of the KCB Group. So what we do is that we work very, very, very closely with KCB Bank because we are lucky in that the work that we're doing with young people, some of the biggest needs that if you ask any entrepreneur out there, what do I need? A lot of the time is, I need finance to grow my business. You speak to young women, they'll tell you, I need money to grow my business. I need working capital, I want to buy X so that I can sell it tomorrow, right? So money is really the fuel that allows businesses to be sustained and also to grow. So this is where KCB Bank Kenya comes in, because in addition to being very clear about the need for the bank, to provide capital for businesses. Like for instance, under the female-led and made enterprises, they committed 250 billion Kenya shillings towards supporting female entrepreneurs. So we are able to really leverage on that by working very well with them and making sure that the young women we're working with, that we are able to really funnel them to the bank so that they can get access to these ready-made financial products that speak towards our youth demographic, that speak towards our female demographic, sometimes farmers. So that's the collaboration that we have with KCB Bank in Kenya.
All right, back to the GOtv program. Talk to us about how the journey looks like, right from when somebody is enrolled with, GOtv and then the recruitment process all the way to business ownership. What does the journey look like?
Certainly. So what typically happens is that we will be looking to support young people who have a business. So almost all the time we're looking for people who have a pre-existing business. It doesn't matter the size. So nano, micro, medium, small. So as long as you have a business, you've been in business for a while, it's not just an idea. So those are the people we will typically start with. And what happens is that we will typically put out a call for proposal. It tends to be geographical based. So you'll find, like, for instance, there are calls going out for Kajiado, as well as other counties, where we'll put out a call for, sometimes it's vocational training, where if you want to come in and learn, you know, I have a carpentry business, but I want to become a better carpenter, and so I want to join a TVET. Or I'm a welder and I want to learn laser welding, so you want to join this sort of scholarship program, learn how to do laser welding. So we'll typically put out these calls on social media, and then the people who are interested will apply. We have, typically it's going to be done in conjunction with the TVETs, where we sit down, we have a conversation with you, we get to know what it is that you want to do, and then once you enroll, once you get through the class, then typically what will then happen is that these students will either graduate where they want to be self-employed, or some of them will want to start again their own businesses, and some of them will perhaps already, as I said, have businesses and they're looking for capital. This is when we now then have a conversation with, let's say, the bank, and we say, if this is the kind of support that you need, this is what you need to do to make sure that you are investor ready and able to access credit from the bank. So it tends to be a journey. You get the skills, we provide you financial literacy, the bank provides access to finance, and then together we see how do we really push these businesses into becoming stronger over a period of, you know, over a period of time.
So ideally, in the long run, how do you measure the success of the program?
So we measure the success of the program in a couple of things. For the workforce training, for the people who are getting vocational training, number one, you have the skills that you needed. Do you feel the skills had value? And then the second is, were you able to then be placed in some sort of employment? Or were you able to start some sort of trade based on this training that you got? So there's that, it's training, but then after that, were you able to get some sort of either job placement or market placement? And then for businesses, we have a few metrics that we look at. Some of them are around how sustainable is your business, in terms of, have you increased turnover, have you increased your cash flow, have you been able to access capital or a loan if that's what you wanted, are you being able to better reach your target population through, you know, better marketing. So we have a series of metrics that we use to really try and make sure that we are tracking not just the training, but also what comes out of the training to make sure that it's valuable. Thank you for that, because I was coming to that question. If at all you do the tracking, you know, when somebody has achieved or not achieved whatever they wanted, then how do you come in to just help the situation, or are they stuck at that point? But you also mentioned that you've supported over 39,000 youth MSMEs, and you've also created more than 150,000 jobs. So how do you work around these regulatory or structural limitations in the counties? So by regulatory challenges, presumably you're talking about things like business registration, things to
enrollment.
Yes, so that's a really good question, and you have really gone to the heart of what sometimes makes it hard to start and sustain a business. So what we've been able to do is that there are quite a number of industry players who are working in that space of creating a more enabling environment. And what we do at KCB Foundation is that we partner with people like this who are in the sector, who are keeping an eye on what are the barriers that prevent people from being able, for instance, to register a business. Do you need 14 licenses? Are they all necessary? Can we bring them down to 8? For some people, especially think about persons with disability, right? Is it easy for you to register your business? What are the barriers? So there are lots of industry players who are really working in this space in terms of creating a more enabling environment. I also really have to acknowledge that also, if you look at some of the work that is happening in the counties, there are also some counties that have very deliberate efforts towards making it easier to invest in their counties. So in terms of when it comes to these youth groups, making it easier to have partnerships with entities like KCB Foundation and KCB Bank, where you're then now able to do things like access credit. You're able to really get into the county, can I say, ecosystem or value chain, where you're then now able to be really embedded in how the county does business. Yeah.
Now, speaking of counties, how widespread are your programs across the country?
So we're in all 47 counties. We like to say plus Kakuma. It's not the 48th county, right? But we're in all 47 counties, as well as also in Kakuma. And with our KCB scholars, what we do is that every year we take on scholars from all the counties. 50% male, 50% female. Same thing with Tujiajiri when it comes to workforce development. We're in about 44 counties.
Okay.
And MSMEs were in all the counties. So you'll see we are really everywhere in Kenya. We really leverage on the KCB Bank branch network, because without them really, we wouldn't have been able to impact as many people and as geographically significant as we have been able to do, because we leverage on the branch network where KCB has presence. So through that, we're able to really reach the entire country. And beyond that, we also work in the countries that the KCB group works in, so Uganda, Tanzania, DRC, Sudan, Burundi, and which one am I missing? Rwanda. Yes.
Rwanda. Yes. Okay. So, somebody may wonder, if you're spread across, the 47 counties, how do you select, whoever benefits from this foundation? And just to ensure that even the youth in these rural areas, none of them is left behind.
That's a really good question, because, equity really has to be at the heart of these sorts of programs if you're to be successful. Because if you're not equalizing outcomes in the country, then really, to some extent, your work is not as impactful as it could be. So for the KCB Scholars Program, what we do is that all selections, we do them in very, very close collaboration with KCB Bank branch staff. We also do it with community volunteers. We have an amazing alumni of people who have been through the KCB Scholars Program, who really help us in this recruitment interviewing process. And what we do is that through the branch network, and again, it is not just a KCB Bank branch. We also have agents that are literally everywhere. We make sure that the application forms, that the news is readily available to anyone who wants to participate in this program. We take it online, and we make sure that we do a recruitment process that is also fair to everyone by making sure that it is something that we are trying to make sure that it is perhaps for economically disadvantaged children, that we are really looking at unpacking who can we help, who really has the greatest need, and is of course also like academically gifted. And the same principle applies to Tujiajiri. We try and make sure that we are really trying to catch the people who have maybe greater need. We have a very deliberate affirmative action agenda, so we try and bring in at least 10% of our programs for persons with disability or children with disability, refugees, for the programs that I was telling you about, as well as also maybe children who are suffering from, can I say, harmful cultural practices. So
like FGM?
Like FGM, teen marriage. So we try and make sure that our programs really catch the people who really require this sorts of services the most. So
what kind of mentorship and support do you offer these beneficiaries aside from just tuition?
So that's a really good question. So for KCB scholars, mentorship is built into what it is that we do. We are very, very clear that unless you are also providing holistic support to these scholars, paying school fees is not enough. You have to come in with mentorship, and we do this either through teacher mentors, or also our staff also come in to mentor, and then we also have professional mentors who we bring in to mentor the high school students that we work with. And beyond that, we also try and build in other things, even in our Tujiajiri program, where we make sure that through avenues like, for instance, the Biashara Club, you are able to have maybe peer-to-peer mentorship from women. If you're in business, you're a woman, right? The Biashara Club is for women. And this is something that is with the KCB Bank. You're able to access that peer-to-peer mentorship where you're able to get things like, how do I get more confidence when I'm trying to get a sale, right? So it's something that we've been very deliberate in building into all our programs. And we have found that without contradiction, one of the biggest things that you can do if you're in a position of authority is mentor somebody. One of the biggest advantages you can get for yourself if you want to get ahead is to look for a mentor. Mentorship is one of the biggest enablers of success, either professionally or also in the academic space. So that is something that we really build into the programs.
So we are talking about two programs. We have Scholars Program and we have Tuajiri Program.
Correct.
Just for the benefit of our viewer to separate these two, how different are they from each other?
So the way I look at it is that KCB Scholars is for the people under 18. So we're trying to make sure that they get an education. So high school, and then they'll go on to tertiary. Tujiajiri is for people over 18. Same thing, we're trying to make sure that they get opportunities. And for over 18, part of it is going to be education through vocational training. The other is going to be through economic empowerment. But it is really something that speaks towards the same thing, which is that we want to create shared prosperity. For KCB Scholars, let people finish high school. Let guys enjoy high school. Let people thrive in high school. For Tujiajiri, it is get what it is that you need to be as economically empowered as you can be as a young person in the country.
We're talking about your focus being on vulnerable groups, girls, the PWDs, FGM survivors, but what kind of tailored support do you offer these groups, or is it just similar from everybody just living a normal life?
No, not really, because we'll find like for scholars, so again under 18, we need to get you to finish high school, thrive in high school. So what we do is that we provide like for the physically, so for children who have physical disabilities, we provide assistive devices. So be it wheelchairs, electric wheelchairs, you probably need a cane, you probably need all sorts of support to be able to have you be able to attend school. So we provide that as well. In addition to that, we also make sure that the interventions we have are also tailored for you. So you'll find that, like for instance, we started a scholarship program for student athletes. So people who are really good at athletics or sports, and you don't want to necessarily drop out of school to be able to pursue this. So even for children with disability, one of the things we're trying to make sure that we do is that in the coming year, for instance, you'll see, we also have a sports program that tackles and supports the inclusion of children with disability who are really gifted in this space into the scholarship program. We also, as you said, as you mentioned earlier, provide mentorship. So it's a whole slew of services that really speaks towards making sure that if it's for children with disability, they have the physical as well as also the psychosocial support that they need to be able to thrive in school.
I love that you've mentioned that athletics program, because I was coming to it. I understand, I was reading somewhere that you launched it last year. So how important was this launch, the athletics program, and how does it fit in now to this scholars program?
So how it fits in is that we wanted to make sure that for us, again, our goal for the high school is to make sure that as many people are not falling off after primary school. And we noticed that students who are very talented in running sometimes unfortunately have to make a choice between the academics or training so that they can become professional athletes. We knew that is a space we have to intervene in. So last year we launched our Gifted and Talented program, which was around trying to get talented athletic students into school. And we partnered with schools like, for instance, Transcend, that are able to train both on the academic side as well as on the running side. And as a consequence, we were able to get the first cohort of about 50 students. So they joined Form 1 last year, and it has been so affirming because it really speaks towards what happens when you give people an opportunity. These young people are competing and winning. When you look at the sports front. They're competing in Kenya, they're competing for East Africa. We have 2 who are set to compete in Nigeria for Kenya on a continental level. And it is something that really speaks towards that thing of if you invest in somebody, a lot of the time all you have to do is to just give them the space to really show you just how brilliant they were going to be. So it has been phenomenal. It has really exceeded even our expectations. And it is something that we are all extremely proud of, what our student athletes have been able to do. And we're looking forward to even rolling out even more opportunities for budding athletes, and now to also include children with disabilities as part of this work.
We're talking about, of course, in the job market, some get jobs, some don't get these jobs. So how do you sustain these businesses, say from the fragile stages of its growth? How do you come in as a foundation now to help them grow?
So what we do is that we partner with business development support, let me say, providers. And these are people who we have carefully selected, who have the ability to provide, training, knowledge to these budding businesses to allow them to really get the skills that they need to be able to sustain their businesses. Some of this is around things like how do you keep a set of books, right? You need a set of books in terms of so that you're not commingling your personal and your professional finances. How do you use this set of books to be able to get a loan that works for you? How do you know how much money you need to ask for? Some of it is around marketing. How do I sharpen how it is that I market so that I can get the customers that I need? How do I invest in this, right? So it's a whole slew of things that goes into this sort of training. It's based on the International Labour Organization Start and Improve Your Own Business methodology, which is really aimed at now making sure that those nascent young businesses, they get the skill sets that they need to be able to, number one, maintain so that you don't go down. And then ideally also grow for those that want to grow. So that's the methodology.
All right. As a foundation, you disbursed around, I think, 1.6 billion shillings, if I'm wrong. You'll correct me if I'm wrong. But how do you ensure the money is, well utilized and it just doesn't go out there and get misused?
So we've disbursed actually, so what the 1.6 billion refers to is in the last year, the MSMEs that we worked with were able to get about 1.6 billion in loans from KCB in Kenya. But every year, if you think of the KCB scholars, we spend about 600 million per year just for the KCB Scholars Program. And this is all funded by the KCB Bank in Kenya. And then for our MSME work, we spend about over 5 billion per year in some of the work that we do. And again, this is all in partnership with our partners like the Mastercard Foundation, as well as the Gates Foundation. And in terms of making sure the money is not misused, because really that would be one of the biggest disservices to the young people on whose behalf Tujiajiri was started. So what we try and do is that we make sure that we partner with people with whose values we really have alignment with. We also make sure that when it comes to governance, because honestly governance is at the heart of this work. We have strong governance measures in place. As a foundation, we have a board that I report to. We also are very tightly regulated because we are regulated as a financial institution. And then we also do routine proper things like annual audits, internal audits, just to make sure that every shilling that comes into the foundation is really being used for the purpose it was intended. So but if you were to ask me, how do we make sure the money gets used? It really starts with, number one, being very clear about why this work matters. This work is deeply important. We must keep people in school. We must create jobs. And when you're rallying around that, then you're going to make sure that every shilling that you have is really being used towards that mission and that objective.
Perfect. So how do young people sign up for these opportunities, Mendi?
So what we do is we are on, I want to say, almost all social media platforms. We're on X, we're on LinkedIn. I was going to say we're on Facebook. That may be a me generation kind of platform. And what we do is that, and it's at KCB Group. And you will find anytime we have a recruitment, we're going to put out something on social media. It allows you to also, will invariably put a link in terms of this is how you can sign on online. We'll also provide information in terms of this is where you can actually go. Through our branches for KCB scholars, we'll make sure that we have paper, old school applications also in all the KCB branches whenever we have a KCB Scholars program. So I'd like to say we are online at KCB Group. We are also in the branches as needed, especially when we're doing, let's say, county or regional based recruitments.
All right, as we wind up, and this is the last one, of course, and should serve as your parting shot as well. It's International MSME Day. Yes. What do you seek to achieve, in terms of just empowering the young people with this KCB Foundation?
So we want to create shared prosperity. We know that MSMEs are the avenue through which Kenya's economic growth is being carried out. So what we want is to make sure that these MSMEs move from not just surviving and being able to get today's bread, but to being really the engines and truly prosperous vehicles where people are able to access dignified, decent incomes, and we're able to fulfill that thing that is in our national anthem, shared prosperity. That's what we're aiming for.
All right. Thank you so much, Mendi, for making time for us to have this conversation on International MSME Day and, of course, KCB Foundation. Can I join KCB Foundation? I'm too old.
No. Are you between 18 to 34?
Oh, yes.
There you go. There you can absolutely join. Maybe not for scholars, but to Jiajiri, absolutely 18 to 34. And we also have programs for women who are also over 34. So really, we are an equal opportunity foundation on our socials or at any KCB branch. Karibuni. All
right, asante sana. That is Mendi Njonjo, Director, KCB Foundation, speaking to us about International MSME Day and, of course, the KCB Foundation and what they are working towards. So that brings us to the end of this conversation. It's a Feel Good Friday. Don't go too far. DJ Granite is already on set, ready with some great hits. Stay with us.